What is it about music that can transform your ordinary life into something extraordinary? What is it about music that can touch us so deeply and set in motion the wheel of our emotions? Whether we celebrate each other, nature, or the divine, our desire to express ourselves through music is ancient and a cultural universal. In this program, we will explore music from all over the world and speak with guests from musical, spiritual, scientific, and other realms in a quest to share and understand how music affects us. I'm your host, BRAUN, and this is Soulscapes. Since the beginning of time, humans have chosen leaders to guide them in their decision-making. From small tribes to larger communities, leaders have helped shape societies by bringing out the best in others and fostering a sense of belonging to a greater cause. In the world of music, early tribal communities looked to shamans and elders for guidance, and in ancient Greece, when music became more structured, leaders included choral directors and lyre masters. Symphonic conductors, as a distinct formal role, developed gradually over several centuries. In the early music of the Middle Ages, there was no separate conductor. A choir leader, or one of the performers, typically kept time vocally or with simple hand gestures and motions. In the late Baroque and early Classical era, conducting was still done from within the ensemble. The leader was often the concert master, the first violinist, or the composer at the keyboard, like Bach or Mozart. Court composer Jean-Baptiste Lully conducted by striking a long staff on the floor to mark the beat. This turned out to be fatal, as he died from infection after accidentally striking his own foot in the process. From Lully's floor-thumping staff to the rolled sheets of paper of early choir directors and the violin bows of concertmasters, the growing need for visibility and precision in directing ever larger ensembles led to the emergence of the modern baton in the early 1800s, the light, slender stick becoming synonymous with the conductor's art. The 19th century, known as the Romantic era, saw the birth of the modern conductor. As music became more complex and orchestras grew in size, a dedicated leader standing apart from the orchestra became essential. The role of these conductors was not just to beat time. They now took interpretive authority over tempo, dynamics, and phrasing. Conductors today serve as musical interpreters, ensemble coordinators, educators, communicators, artistic, and sometimes administrative leaders. It takes a very special person with great musical insight and human understanding to master the skills needed to direct and navigate the myriad dynamics of an ensemble. One such person is with me today. Equally at home in symphony, opera, and ballet, my guest today has served as staff conductor at the San Francisco Opera, the Canadian Opera Company, and the National Ballet of Canada. She is a dedicated advocate for new works and has conducted numerous world premieres for such companies as the Seattle Opera, the West Australian Ballet, and Opera on the Avalon in Canada, where she serves as music director and principal conductor. Maestra Judith Yan, welcome to Soulscapes.
Hi, Addie.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. We are in Snowmageddon 2026, right?
Yes, we are.
Let's have some fun. I say music and you say thoughts and words that come to mind.
I think one word comes to mind, and it's everything. I think growing up, I had to understand and adapt very quickly to Western European society. I read Great Expectations, Anna Karenina, in order to understand human nature in words, but I think to understand human nature and feeling, it's music. And I think because, my family and I moved from Hong Kong to Canada, when for me at a very young age, it was a very foreign experience as a child coming from Hong Kong. You end up adapting with all five of your senses without resistance that you would if you were an adult. And sound and music was one of the ways for me to absorb a completely new experience. So music has always been very important. It always been the first point of contact, and that's why when you say music, I say everything.
It's like a delicious bagel with the everything topping.
Yes, that's correct.
Not to trivialize it, but I understand what you're saying. Well, because you already hinted at your childhood memories, can you take us back to your earliest memories of music growing up as a child in Hong Kong?
Oh, growing up in Hong Kong, the society at the time, and I'm sure it still is right now, was rather strict. Right. So I remember in grade 3, like doing homework, schoolwork with my mom till 11 p.m. every night. And on Saturday, we had to go to calligraphy classes because, your penmanship shows your level of, I guess, education, your parentage, and where you fit in as a person in society. So one prominent memory I remember from being a child in Hong Kong was that, and connected to music was, I remember we had choir at school, and I came home from school, and as I described, the society there at the time, and probably still now, is rather strict,
Disciplined,
and very disciplined. So you had to take a nap because you're of a certain age, and you cannot, you can't leave. You have to take this nap. You cannot leave your room. And I remember getting out of bed, which is a big defiance, going straight to the piano and playing fully harmonized the song that we sang at choir at school. So I know it's like a bit of a long way around to answer your question. But yeah, that was my earliest memory of music.
Like discipline figures very prominently if you even have to sort of factor in times when you must sleep and rise and not sleep. So if you're describing your choir, were you exposed to traditional Chinese as well as Western music in your early years?
Yes. Well, I mean, as kids, we listen to Cantopop, right? So, which was fun. But we also, like, from our grandparents' generation, we listened. I mean, they would show these on the black and white television, right? Like Beijing opera or Chinese opera. And I remember my cousins and I would do impersonations. We would grab our bed sheets because the costumes were very flowy, and we would do these impersonations of Chinese opera. And funny enough, our parents, right, despite this kind of strict culture, they would actually laugh, and I think we did it too because it made them laugh. And for us, I think it showed that there's a difference between what you present to society and what you are at a lighter moment, amongst the people you love. So despite the strictness, grown-ups can and do actually have a sense of humor. So I mean, you could say, well, that's rather two-sided, but as children growing up in Hong Kong, we saw it as pragmatism, whether we understood exactly what pragmatism was or not.
No, so it's great that there was a certain amount of levity there too, because you can't exist in a totally heavy dark space for too long, right? There has to be a balance and everything. But were any of your family musicians, amateur musicians, or artists even way back? Fine artists or anything like that?
No, they were all business people, except for my grandfather. He was a writer. But I also have caught my parents at the piano, and both of them can play by ear and without a single music lesson. So it kind of made sense. Maybe I'm sure they knew that I snuck out of bed when I wasn't supposed to, when I was supposed to take a nap, and went to the piano and played something that I heard or sang at school. And perhaps that's why they forgave me. But,
So maybe they actually enjoyed having you as a child with a slightly indomitable spirit.
yes, I think so. I think it goes back to what you present to society, and and what you're like at home. I mean, we laughed a lot. I remember that. They also very much appreciated the arts.
Ah,
Yeah, despite being business people.
how old were you when you first started to take, I'm going to just say formal music lessons, and what
Okay.
instruments did you play?
Okay, so I had to wait until I was 6
Oh,
before the piano teacher.
such a long time.
Well, there you go. Before I was 6, before the piano teacher would take me. So my parents, of course, all of our parents back then, they were all the original Tiger parents. Okay, so they thought, well, no, we can't have that. She's 4. What are we going to do with her? Okay, let's enroll her in ballet classes. So at 4, I started taking ballet, and but 6, I started taking piano at the same time. And in school, when we came to Canada, I was 9. I chose the flute. This is terrible, because it was the lightest instrument
You mean to carry?
to carry. And I tried to learn the violin a little later on, but it's hard with a violin to learn as a slightly older person when you've started with piano, because at piano you just kind of you as my dear friend Adele Eslinger would say, you just press a button and the sound comes out and it's perfect, depending on whether it's out of tune or not.
And the thing is, once you press the button, you can't really change anything until you press the next button, the key.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you came to Canada at age 9.
Yeah.
Where did you settle? Where did your family settle?
In Toronto.
And so music lessons continued privately, or did you go to a school, eventually a high school that had a music program?
Privately, the piano continued privately, and then I was Royal Conservatory of Music. They had this, I can't remember what the name of the program was, but they also enrolled me in that. In high school, we had band, and so we, it's.
Then after high school, did you continue your musical studies at a university?
I did, but I have to back up a hair and
Please.
say that I continue my music education privately, but when I was 14, I started working as a ballet pianist, and I did that all the way till the end of university. So I was very lucky. I was one of those kids who had a part-time job that taught me so much about what I was going to end up doing later for the rest of my life, without realizing it at the time. It was just fun,
and also that dance figured so prominently at a fairly early age.
Yes, because that piano teacher wouldn't take me at age 6, but I ended up having to take ballet for 10 years. And at a certain point I realized, well, I mean, my parents said you get to choose one or the other, and obviously I had no talent whatsoever in ballet. So, but it was amazing because I ended up, with this part-time job as a ballet pianist. So you're working, but you're also learning so much at such a young age.
And you're watching, you're listening, and you're watching, right? So,
oh yeah, and I think as any artist, your goal is to be able to communicate with others and to be able to work with others, and here you are, you're 14, and you're really being an accompanist.
So at what age did you realize that music could actually be something that could be a career for you?
So I think I went my first year university. I majored in English literature. Because I think like a lot of musicians, we spend a majority of our childhood, into our young adulthood before we even get to university, studying very intensely in music, and you get to around 18, oh man, I need to take a look at what else might be out there. So I went, I studied English literature, which I loved, but for some reason, I don't know, like second year, I got pulled right back to music. I studied composition. And I think it was at university when I realized, oh boy, this is point of no return. I'm afraid I love it too much. And
So I'm just
so,
going to listen to what you're saying. I'm afraid I love it too much. Point of no return. Were there any expectations from your family or from yourself that you should not gravitate to the job that apparently doesn't make you any money and do something else? Like, I'm just wondering whether you had any sort of second thoughts, but the pull was too strong.
my parents were very supportive, in that they didn't stand in the way of anything. They wanted me to be happy. They wanted whatever I did with my life to give me, you know, yeah, they wanted whatever I did to have purpose for me, not necessarily for them. And I think because I come from a family of all business people, it would be no mystery for me to have gone into music. I think in a strange kind of way, they enjoyed the fact that I ended up in the arts because of this job. I ended up, I never ended up having a lot of money, but I always had enough money as a kid. And as a young adult, I never really had to ask my parents for anything. I think from that point of view, they thought, okay, well, she can somewhat take care of herself. And I realize now that, all that contributed to what I'm doing today. I was able to travel to, even very young, like, to London, to New York, everywhere where my friends were going to school. I mean, I was maybe like 18. And my parents just let me. I guess it's like, perhaps it's that generation, right? We were, well-behaved feral children, right? With good manners.
Well, the other thing is, because you said you had a love for literature and had originally started there, you cannot be a fully rounded musician without dabblings into literature, into philosophy, into religion, whatever the case may be, because you have to be so well-rounded. So I'm sure it worked up very well. So you're now at the Faculty of Music, you've made that transition.
Yes.
You said with an emphasis on composition, at what point did conducting become, a fascination or a possibility?
Well, ever the pragmatist, I went into to my music degree in composition, thinking I'm going to write jingles for commercials and music for TV and movies. It was, no interest whatsoever. I mean,
not I'm going to write a symphony for the Toronto Symphony. I'm going to write jingles. That's good.
Absolutely. I am from Hong Kong after all, right? Originally. So somehow I think I graduated from university, and I have to thank Richard Bradshaw for this. He got me a job at the National Ballet of Canada.
If for those who are listening and may not be aware, but the late Richard Bradshaw was a wonderful choral and symphonic conductor who headed the Canadian Opera Company for quite some time. Yeah.
Yes, and he built the Four Seasons.
He did. He certainly did.
Yeah. So I had to, in order to graduate, I had to take a conducting lesson, and I thought, oh, well, okay, this is how it works. And because of the extensive ballet background, where ballet is really putting movement to music, it was really easy. But I still didn't think anything of it. Just thought, oh, I hammed it up so that I could, get a higher mark, thinking it was so ridiculous. I mean, who on earth watches? I mean, really now. So somehow Pierre Itu, my first mentor, figured that, Richard and I would really get along because we had the same sense of humor and the same sense of music. And so he set up this masterclass. It was a total setup. And Richard and I, he says, okay, just learn these Bohème arias and, just learn them, mouth the words. That's what you're supposed to do. I had no clue, right? So I did it, and Richard and it was this, I don't know, we just really got along. And then Pierre had coached me. He says, then you go and you ask Richard, Maestro, I know that you're doing Bohème right now. Do you mind if I come and attend your rehearsals? So I did
Clever,
exactly what was
clever
told to
plan.
do. Yes, and I also in while I was learning the Bohème arias, as a this kid, I realized how much, oh my gosh, like opera, wow, 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 it's amazing, it's so
Hmm.
beautiful, this is
Hmm.
incredible. So here I am, at these rehearsals, and Richard was conducting a rehearsal, and he turned around and he says, do you want to give it a go? And I said, oh gosh. I thought, well, if I say no, I'll never get a
That,
chance to work for him.
that's right.
Yeah, sure, why not? Right. So I don't know how, but I did it. I also learned you have to make really good friends with the pianist. I think it was Wayne Vogan. I
Hmm.
remember make friends with him, and then I would just go over and say, you know what, you just play beautifully. I'm going to do movement interpretation to your beautiful playing. And I think at the beginning, when I was learning all about opera, that's really how I learned through the kindness of the repetiteurs.
Mm-mm.
And so Richard asked if I wanted to work for him, and I said I'm not ready. I don't know anything. I don't know enough. And I said, but I do know a bit more about ballet. And he says, okay. So then that's how it all started. He got me a job as a pianist for the National Ballet of Canada.
So, conductors, even in great Disney productions and in cartoons, typically have a baton. So
Yes.
it's like a magic wand that conveys your musical intentions to an orchestra, to a singer, to dancers. What is it about this particular action and the responsibility that fascinates you so much?
I think my answer now is very different than my answer would have been when I first started. I think when I was younger, I would think, oh gosh, if I'm successful at this engagement, will this engagement bring me somewhere bigger, brighter? Or, you know, so now I am very aware that each concert and each performance has um, uh, an effect on all my colleagues, not just me, but all my colleagues. So it may be that this performance will lead to a promotion for someone on stage, or someone in the pit,
Right.
or it could lead to a rehire, or and this is interesting, or maybe this was their final performance before retirement. And I think for me anyway, thinking about the job in a bigger sense has always been much more satisfying than the conductor. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
a singular person.
Yeah, but I think like, age does bring maturity in most people and a certain wisdom. Um,
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about women and conducting. I did a little bit of, I'm fascinated by the topic
Mm-hmm.
anyway, and women in music, one could go off. So
Mm-hmm.
conducting was almost entirely closed to women until the late 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
And I checked a little bit of the history of female conductors, and I came upon the fascinating story of a Josephine Weinlich. Are you familiar
Mm-hmm.
with that name?
No, not at all. Not until you brought her up. Yeah.
So this is interesting. So she was Slovenian, which was at the time under Austro-Hungarian ruling,
Mm-hmm.
and had parents who noticed, that she was very musical as a child. Now, in her early teens, she played several instruments. She decided that she was going to form a female quartet, which, like for 1870, is like quite incredible. And they were called the Cecilia
Mm-hmm.
Quartet, and
Mm-hmm.
that led her then, because she had talents of conducting, which
Mm-hmm.
her parents again fostered,
Mm-hmm.
she actually founded the first all female orchestra, which is kind of really unheard of. Even
Mm-hmm.
today, it would be quite marvelous. What stumped me in her story is, first of all, the wonder that she got this off the ground. They even had a contract in New York. So this orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
Damen Orchestra, and they were
Mm-hmm.
quite young, traveled to New York and did a performance. And here comes the clincher. In the reviews,
Mm-hmm.
there was next to no mention about conducting the music, how the audience was affected, her brilliant talents, the musicians. Instead, the reviewers spent time talking about how pretty the girls were and what they were wearing and whether they were blushing and so forth. And I just like have to scratch my head at this. Any comments on that?
Oh, wow. That's something. Recently, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was a discussion about women as conductors and how, well, they shouldn't be because they're distracting. Isn't that the comment? And this is maybe 15 years ago.
Wow. Have you in your career experienced any particular challenges that you can connect to being female or not?
Okay. I think at the time now, it's a very complicated question. I mean, I sometimes think about this question, and sometimes I don't, because I think one can't, I personally couldn't focus on that question all the time when the job is that complicated. I think that if I had thought about all the limitations that society had put imposed upon any person, right, whether they're, whether it's a gender or height, whether you're too good looking, you're not good looking enough,
or race or something like
or
that.
race.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been able to continue on and keep pushing to do this. And I really do owe it to my mentors. I mean, I really was very lucky. I had very wonderful mentors. And of course, it started with men because there were only men, when I started. And of course, now it's wonderful. It ends with women who are supportive.
I suppose if you had been interested in conducting 100 years ago, your story might have been entirely different, right? From
Yeah.
levels.
Yeah, and going back to Josephine Weinlich, she had a big supporter in her husband, who was a concert promoter.
Yeah.
So I think, who knows what his motivations were, right? I'm sure he recognized her talent, but some credit has to be given to him because he didn't attempt to be a gatekeeper.
Well, actually, she hired him to be her manager, and I love that story too, right?
That's really, I did not know that. Oh, that's
Wow,
great. Yeah. And also I have to give credit to my father, right? He never treated me any differently than if I was a boy or a girl. It could be because I was the only child. So it never dawned on me that I couldn't do it or I shouldn't do it. And if somebody said, well, you shouldn't do that. And certainly there have been interesting things said to me on numerous occasions, which I will not repeat. I just thought, I'm not going to listen to you. Why would you say something so silly?
Kudos again to your parents and your upbringing that gave you a very solid respect for self and respect for the craft that you were learning. In terms of conducting, what are your, I said in the introduction, equally at home at, ballet, opera, symphonic. What are your favorite things to conduct? Can you even answer that? Does something stick out where you always say, yes, I have a superior passion for that area?
Oh, wow.
Or is it all equal? I mean, are you really just thrilled with just great opportunities?
I have to say, I love everything. And that's what led me to do all three, symphony, opera, and ballet. I couldn't choose at all. And I think that's really been very helpful because it's like cross training,
Yeah.
If you only conduct opera and not ballet, then because if you conduct ballet, I mean, you have to have very good stick technique because you have to be very responsive to what's going on stage. And each dancer is different according to, their height or even, you can't even tell sometimes, sometimes people could be tall and they still jump very fast or, so you need to learn how to read people and respond and still have integrity to the music. So Yeah, I think, and symphony, is another animal in itself.
Well, there you
So
have the chance to conduct possibly a big choir and vocal soloists or instrumental
yeah.
soloist, right?
Yeah, and yeah, and also I find the most interesting symphonic performances are the ones where, it may seem like there's no story for Bruckner 9 or Shostakovich 6 or
Yeah.
whatever. There is a story. And even if there isn't a story, it's always more interesting if you have a narrative in your mind. It keeps your audience engaged. To answer your question about what's your favorite thing to conduct, what are your favorite things? I have to say it's actually the people. I look forward to going to the companies that I have a wonderful relationship with. And these relationships, they take time, or sometimes it's an immediate spark of recognition. For example, I'm going to Saskatoon Symphony next, and I've done quite a number of things with them in the last 5 years, and I adore going there because Mark Turner's a fabulous CEO and he has an amazing staff, and it almost sounds ridiculous, but I see that airport and I'm happy.
Well, yeah.
you know and I see that Holiday Inn that they always put me in across from the
Hmm.
concert hall, and I'm happy. And recently, I went to Norwegian National Opera and Ballet to do a production for them, and also do their opera and ballet gala, and that is a beautiful company. And then in London, right, where I just came back from, the English National Ballet it's just a feeling, right? So
Hmm.
if any of these company asked me to go back and conduct Happy Birthday to Me, I would be happy to do it, because it's about making something.
There's a simpatico element, right? Of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm visualizing you conducting, I've seen you. One thing that came up for me is that performers in any genre usually face the audience, with conductors being the exception to that. What awareness do you have while conducting of what's happening behind you? And how does it feel when the piece is over and you finally turn around and face the audience?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Whether I realize it or not at the time, you can always consciously and subconsciously feel your audience, um, where they're at, how they're feeling. Um, I remember the world premiere of An American Dream at Seattle Opera, uh, and also recently Stuck Elevator. Both works were so moving that you can actually feel the audience.
Hmm.
I've had experiences where you're in it and you think, I think I just heard somebody gasp or cry. Um, you really can feel the audience, despite the fact that you're so focused on what's in front of you and the job at hand. You can feel it. And to answer your second question, hmm, you know, um, when you're in the pit, right? When I'm in the pit, it's a different feeling altogether. So
Well, you're submerged, right?
you're
You're
submerged. You really are. Um, I had a really unique experience recently. That I have never experienced this, where you bow, you come out, you say thank you orchestra, and then you back up, and then the entire company comes forward, and they go right to the edge, and they look into the pit, and they clap to the orchestra. And the orchestra has not left the pit. They're looking up at all the dancers, and with these most amazing genuine smiles, and return their appreciation. I found that so unique and very moving, and a very profound understanding between those on stage, those in the pit, and also those in the house, of how special it is.
in that moment when you are gesturing to them and they may applaud to you, it is a kind of a communion. That leads me to my next question. Um, does spirit, and I'm not going to say spirituality, I specifically mean, does spirit uh, energy play a role in your musical life? And if so, how?
Despite having gone to Catholic school in Hong Kong, I am not terribly religious in that sense of the word. But the minute you're making music, something is very different, especially when you're making music with a lot of people. It's quite magical. I mean, that how is it that we all do the same thing at the same time? It's and how is it that you create this feeling that goes into the audience? You hope and that it is a good effect on a good day. I still remember doing, I couldn't remember, it was the Verdi or if it was Mozart Requiem, and when we got to Sanctus, like the light shone in through, it was at a basilica, through the stained glass windows. I mean, I know it's a coincidence, right? But it was a really, really wonderful coincidence.
I mean, the very act of making music can be viewed as, something sacred. I'm going back to just like communicating and being in a communal space. When an audience goes to a concert, they're geared for something special to happen. There's a reason that we don't continue to talk in most places once the music starts, because there is this third element, this magical thing that has been brought to life that perfumes the audience and the players and the magic stick waver, if you will.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. And you can also see it in your colleagues' faces when everything just falls completely into place, and when the connection with the stage is exactly right. It's incredible. Like I remember doing Idomeneo, was my in Germany, and that was my debut, and no rehearsal, of course, right? And they had to fly in the Iliad the day of the performance. I think I had 45 minutes with the Iliad, never conducted the orchestra, and somehow there was something magical that day. One of the rare 3 times, in my entire performance career that I'll never forget. The Iliad and I did not have to look at each other at all. It was so incredibly together, the entire experience.
It's like a mystical alignment that happens, right?
Yeah.
So what you're describing right now, that incident, is what I would call a transformative moment, which leads me then to my next question is, what have been some of your most transformative musical moments and experiences over the years?
Oh, wow. Well, the Idomeneo was definitely one of them. Recently, also at English National Ballet at the Coliseum. I've never experienced a ballet company that actually watches the conductor. Maybe they do. They just don't tell me. They never told me. But I felt like we were really, making music together. The genuine appreciation of each other when the bows came, because I know that sometimes a lot of people in the pit, they can just leave, so they're just like leaving while the bows are happening, but not in this case. And as I had described, the genuine appreciation of each other when the bows came. Saskatoon Symphony, the concert, we did a concert underneath his installation. It's Under a Moon. That was really beautiful.
So there was another element then there, right? So
yes,
like a visual element for the audience as well as for you and the players?
Yes. The orchestra was on top of a massive work of art by Monique Martin. It was something. It was so the orchestra itself was enveloped in 2 gigantic pieces of art.
That's like fully integrated, right?
Yeah.
Fully integrated moment.
And then another transformative, I guess, moment would be a Suor Angelica I did. That was one of the few productions in my career where I did not want it to end. And because it was such a happy experience from the first day of rehearsal to the final performance. And it had to do with the way the cast interacted with each other, how wonderful the director was, and how supportive we were of each other. And you think, yeah, I think that's why we stood there and we said, well, this is rare. Wow, we can't believe this is happening.
I also like to ask my guests about some of their, because we talked about transformative moments. If you had to choose 3 or 4 pieces of music from any genre that you go to for upliftment or that bring you upliftment, what would a mini Judith Yan playlist look like?
Okay, first I have to say we have an Audie Braun playlist for all of our
Shucks.
parties. Our guests love it. Moderne Frau, Buddy on the Night Shift, Josephine.
Okay.
We love it. So yeah, you're definitely on our upliftment playlist.
Blushing over here. Yeah.
I have to say Liebestod, Tristan und Isolde. It's so exquisitely beautiful. It's outerworldly. So the other one would be Strauss, Four Last Songs.
Okay.
That last moment where the soprano finally finishes, but I can imagine, and I did this with my dear friend Cheryl Hickman. She was just graciously looking off into the distance, allowing the orchestra to finish. I think you can't help but conjure up these feelings of this is what's going to happen at the end. The love of my life and I are going to sit together, and we're just gonna watch the world disappear, like the end of that gorgeous movie Unbearable Lightness of Being. We just drive off into the mist. That yeah, and plus, oh my goodness, that stunning violin line. Is it in Schlafendienst? I think it is. That takes over the vocal line, and the vocal line goes. It's so exquisite for last songs. Another one would be, I would have to say, Nina Simone, her cover of Stars. I think that is a song that all artists would appreciate. To go through. She talks about how the trajectory of one's career and what happens when you're no longer at the height of your career, or when your star fades, and how at the beginning everybody wants you, at the end, it's so profound. Yeah. And the last one more, okay, is Korngold's Glückwunsch. Never fails to move me.
Is there any piece that you haven't conducted that you'd love to conduct?
I think Tchaikovsky 6. I've done a lot of Tchaikovsky, and I really believe that Nutcracker is a work of genius.
Absolutely.
It's his best work. Because I always just take, what has been assigned to me. I just do it. And while I'm, if it's something I don't know, I learn it. And at the moment that I'm, performing or preparing a piece, that is my favorite piece. That's the piece I want to do.
Well, as they say, from your lips to God's ears, perhaps, you never know.
Maybe. Yes.
Judith Yan, it's been an absolute joy to speak with you, to learn so much more about you, and to see the, we talked about your discipline early on that has clearly shaped you and carried you through, but the immense passion and joy that you bring to the craft. I think that is, it's a little bit rare these days because people are so, I don't know, stilted sometimes. So thank you for bringing also the passion to this program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's now listen to Judith Yan conducting one of her favorite composers, Tchaikovsky. Here is the Swan theme from Swan Lake, featuring the Saskatoon Symphony and oboist Aaron Brophy. Glorious music, gloriously performed by the Saskatoon Symphony oboist Aaron Brophy and my guest, conductor Judith Yan, in a live recording from 2022. From north to south and east to west, music inhabits every corner of our world and beyond. I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with the remarkable Judith Yan. I'm Adi BRAUN, and this is Soulscapes.